Okay, today we'll talk about the design of a big fish rod. Since it's called a big fish rod, it must be good for catching big fish. It can't be good for catching small fish or crucian carp, right? So, when catching big fish, you definitely can't just fly the fish out of the water. That's what the crane does. So catching a big fish definitely requires playing it, slowly maneuvering against any rod used for playing a fish. Any rod used for recreational wild fishing. When you're playing a fish, most of the time you use is the middle and rear end of the rod. What are the standards for a good mid to late stage fish playing technique? For points, first, it's about stable fish control. Second, good elasticity. Third, easy to bend over. Fourth, fast rebound. Let me explain one by one. For example, stable fish control. Let's talk about unstable fish control first. It's like using a super thin crucian carp rod. What's it like when you're reeling in a big fish? That very abrupt feeling. Even with the carbon fiber of this crucian carp rod, the tonnage is extremely high. It's not stable to control the fish with it. So if you want stable fish control, the force-bearing area of the rod section must be large. That is, the entire rod section must be thick enough. Secondly, good elasticity. That's when you're controlling the fish. The fish will struggle forcefully. The fish will pull on the rod section. The rod will give the fish a reaction force to pull it back. The fishing rod won't. The force released by the fish, all of it is fed back to your hand. Good elasticity. A rod with good elasticity. It means you don't get tired when playing the fish, but the fish will get tired. The fish will be pulled back faster. Third, it's easy to bend. This is also very simple. When you lift the rod bends very easily. It's easy to create a fishing spot. That way it won't be easy to have a tug of war, and you can't pull the rod tip into the water. That is, when you bend the rod, the tip can't be pulled into the water. If you pull it into the water, the fish will get away, right? That's why you need this rod. The middle and later sections are stiff and bend easily. The stiffness of this rod section cannot be increased by adding taper, because the stiffness becomes truly hard after the weight is increased. It's the kind of stiffness that won't bend, also called dead stiffness or fake weight. So you see, the middle and rear sections of a big fish rod all require a reduced taper. At the same time, high-tonnage carbon fiber is used to increase this stiffness. In other words, you rely on increasing the rod's modulus of elasticity. The increased stiffness makes it easier to bend. So you see, after you open the back plug on a big rod, many big rods have those last few sections. You see, they're basically all pressed together. The smaller the gap between the two walls, the smaller the taper. The taper ratio of the last few sections is extremely small, right? The fourth one, fast rebound. What is the purpose of a fast rebound? It's when you're playing a big fish. The fish will struggle. The line will also loosen. A faster rod rebound is needed. Only then. Straighten the loose line. Requires the carbon fiber tonnage of the middle and rear sections of the fishing rod cannot be low, meaning higher carbon fiber tonnage means faster rebound. In summary, it's a good rod for big fish. First, the carbon fiber tonnage in the middle and rear sections cannot be low. Second, the taper ratio of the large sections in the middle and rear sections should be small. Finally, the rod as a whole cannot be too thin. Having mentioned the advantages, let's talk about the disadvantages. Because the taper ratio of the middle and rear sections of the rod is relatively small, and the fishing rod is relatively thick. Therefore, the taper variation of the entire rod is left for the first few sections. Therefore, the taper variation in the first few sections is relatively large. But then, for large-scale fishing rods, in order to pursue the overall stiffness of the rod, so the carbon fiber tonnage of the first few sections will definitely be lower. That is what I often say. If you only look at one rod, open the later image. Which section has the largest taper change? Its carbon cloth tonnage is low. Which section has the smallest taper change? Its carbon fiber tonnage is higher. However, the taper change in the first few sections is larger. This means it will definitely not protect the line when setting the hook. However, heavy rod is more effective, less likely to lose fish, easier to pierce the lip of a large fish. So if you use a rod designed for fishing large fish to hook the fish, you can't care whether the rod protects the line or not. This issue. Secondly, what if you use it to fish for crucian carp? It's definitely easy for the line to break. The fishing line for crucian carp is small in number and thin in diameter. Just like a certain expert said, even for crucian carp, you need to use a large rod. That's nonsense. Because using a large rod for crucian carp is extremely bad for line protection, extremely difficult to use. Secondly, as you can see, this is how it's done. Definitely not as evenly tapered. It's just that the weight distribution at the front and back is good. That is, the heavy weight bar. The weight at the front is actually greater. The weight at the end is actually smaller. It's just that it's heavier at the top. There's one more thing. It's what I mentioned yesterday. If you choose to fish for tilapia, if you use a long rod to fish for tilapia, if you're fishing for large tilapia, then choose a big fish rod or a carp rod to use. For recreational fishing for large tilapia, because this kind of rod, its hooking power is relatively strong at the tip. It easily pierces the fish's mouth. Secondly, the mid to late stage strength and fish control are relatively stable. The core strength and elasticity are also relatively good. Control over large tilapia. Although it may not be as good as a professional tilapia rod, it can even make the fish fly out of the water, because even large tilapia can't fly out of the water, and controlling large tilapia isn't that tiring. Okay, look at my fishing rod at Qingjiu. See you next time.